Discover the incredible transformation. 7 surprising ways faith makes the impossible possible. Emily's heart raced as she stepped into the local clinic, the scent of antiseptic heavy in the air, a stark reminder of her demanding life as a nurse in a town teetering on the edge of despair. She felt the weight of her father's failing health alongside the insistent cries of her 10-year-old son, Lucas, tugging at the edges of her soul, demanding attention. Balancing the responsibilities of being both a caregiver and a provider felt impossible, the bills piling high like insurmountable hills she was too tired to climb. Each patient she encountered brought a fresh wave of empathy, but the challenges she faced at home loomed larger. How could one person juggle so much? That evening, while tending to Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman's radiant smile stood out amidst the gloom. "I've been through 3 battles with cancer," Mrs. Henderson said, her voice steady and firm. "But faith has always been my guiding light." It was as if her words stitched a makeshift bandage over Emily's gaping wounds. Yet a spark ignited within her, one that whispered of possibilities far beyond her current existence. She was momentarily captivated, yearning for a glimpse of her own convictions. But the reality of her life came crashing down swiftly. The doubts crept back, insidious and relentless. Could faith really change anything for her? Could she find a voice in a town drowning in apathy? As days turned into weeks, the more she learned about community health issues, the deeper the urgency clawed at her chest. But as she began to speak out, the skepticism in her colleagues' eyes burned like a brand, and each dismissive comment landed as a blow against her fragile spirit. Was her idea too far-fetched? Would the townsfolk listen to a nurse when they barely listened to a doctor? Emily could hardly catch her breath. Bills strained her finances while her father was rushed to the hospital, a haunting specter that darkened her days. The doctors delivered a grim diagnosis that sent shockwaves rippling through her already precarious world. Alone, she sank into a darkness that seemed insurmountable, fear tightening its grip on her heart. Just when she thought she'd cracked under the pressure, Robert, her father's friend from the factory days, stepped in. He had faced his own demons and understood the stifling weight of despair that threatened to suffocate her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With newfound determination, Emily began sketching plans to address healthcare disparities in her town. But as familiar faces turned dismissive, a familiar sense of despair echoed within her. Her heart clenched. The world felt so large and she, so small. Doubt gnawed at her. Could one nurse stir change against an impenetrable wall of resistance? Yet the flicker of hope ignited by Robert's stories fueled her resolve. She poured herself into the call for action, even as whispers of cynicism trailed behind her like shadows. She stood at a crossroads. Defiance and desperation battled within, and as she prepared for her first public engagement, worry seeped into her bones like cold. Could her voice cut through the pervasive darkness? Would she be cast aside as just another dreamer? The raw truth loomed. Change was not just an echo in the halls, it demanded every ounce of faith she possessed. The ring of her heart pulsed against the stone-cold floor beneath her. What if she failed? What if hope slipped away, leaving behind nothing but her own uncertainty? Would she muster the courage to step forward, or would the weight of disbelief bury her alive? Emily stood backstage, the dim light filtering through the curtains, casting her silhouette against the wall. The cacophony of noise from the audience was a reminder of the battle she was about to engage in. She could feel the tremors running through her fingers, the anticipation of either success or utter failure gripping her with equal force. What if her voice was lost among the sea of indifference? But the image of Mrs. Henderson's smile anchored her. How could she let fear dictate the outcome of a mission that was hers alone? Dismissing the crowd as faceless shadows, she concentrated on the heart of the matter, the health crisis plaguing her community. Each statistic she had pored over echoed in her mind, reverberating with urgency. Diabetes rates rising, Asthma attacks increasing, disparities in access to care. These weren't just issues in a textbook. They were lives, aching voices waiting for someone to listen. As she stepped into the spotlight, the blinding glare seized her. For a moment, she hesitated, but she could already feel Robert's encouraging presence behind her, as if he was holding her shoulder. One deep breath focused on grounding herself, and she began. The words flowed with an intensity she hadn't anticipated, as if they had been waiting in the wings, eager to leap into existence. I am here today not just as a nurse, but as a concerned citizen, she declared, her voice steadying with each syllable. Faces began to emerge from the shadows, eyes transfixed on her. Every one of you knows someone struggling with health issues. We are a community, bound by our stories, but far too many of us are suffering in silence. Her speech continued to build, fueled by a blend of facts and personal anecdotes that painted a vivid picture of their reality. Each story she shared was a reminder of resilience, and the audience seemed to resonate with those shared struggles. A flicker of hope ignited among them, the first sparks of a fire she hoped could grow, but not all the glances were warm. She spotted a few skeptics, arms crossed tightly, faces set in disapproval. One man, seated near the front, shook his head ever so slightly at various points during her speech, as if to indicate that she was wasting her breath. Each dismissive gesture felt like a blow, but instead of retreating, something shifted within her. The sting of their doubt hardened her resolve. After the talk, a few curious attendees approached her, and their questions illuminated the way forward. Conversations flowed, and ideas sparked with a fragmentation of hope. However, the man who had been shaking his head earlier approached her, his expression grave. "You're just another dreamer, Emily," he said bluntly. "This isn't going to change anything." That statement jolted through her, and a tension filled the air. Silence hung heavily, as if the room itself awaited her response. A storm began swirling within. Doubt and indignation contended fiercely. Did she really believe that? Could she stand here and let others determine the scope of her ambition? "This dreamer," she replied, her voice low yet firm, "is ready to fight for the lives that matter, starting with the one I love the most." With that, she turned on her heel, leaving him stunned. She may have left him behind, but the encounter lingered in her mind like a warning. Was she really equipped to navigate not just the professional landscape, but the deeply entrenched phantoms of skepticism in a community that had seen too much failure? Determined to reflect on her path, Emily navigated home through dimming city streets. The doubts that had plagued her were overshadowed by a newfound clarity. Every step brought her closer to understanding that change would not be a solo journey. She needed allies and a plan to invigorate those wounds exposed by her vulnerability. As she sat down that night with pen and paper, lines began to form. A strategy, a way to galvanize support, a means to convert skepticism into action. But just as she began drafting her vision, a knock echoed through her home. The unexpected sound jolted her from her aspirations. Who could it be at this hour? Rising slowly, Emily's heart hammered hopes, sparking uncertainty all over again. Would the answer on the other side of the door bring more conflict, or an opportunity she never expected? Emily's heartbeat pounded in her ears, syncing with the rapid series of knocks that shattered the stillness of her home. With an unsteady breath, she approached the door, anticipation intertwining with apprehension. The weight of the moment hung heavily in the air as she reluctantly grasped the doorknob and pulled it open. Standing on her doorstep was a woman she recognized, a fellow nurse from the clinic, Rachel, her face taut with urgency. "Emily, I need to talk to you. It's important." The worry in Rachel's tone sliced through Emily's uncertainty like a knife. She stepped aside, ushering Rachel into her living room. "What's going on?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I just got word from Dr. Singh. The community health initiative we discussed? It's in jeopardy," Rachel said, pacing, her hands wringing together. "Funding can disappear overnight. They keep saying we need more support, more evidence that our outreach is effective." Emily felt her stomach drop. The initiative had been a glimmer of hope in their community, an opportunity to address the very statistics she detailed during her speech. "What can we do?" she urged, immediately shifting gears. We can't let this die out. It's too important. Rachel stopped pacing, looking directly at Emily with an intensity that mirrored her own. We have to show them the impact we're making. I know we talked about gathering testimonials, but maybe we need more. What if we organized a health fair? We could invite the residents, offer screenings, gather stories firsthand, show them the human cost of these health issues. The idea electrified Emily, a spark ignited within her. A health fair could be the very platform they needed to rally support. It could transform their struggle into a tangible, collective experience, capturing the hearts of those who could make a decision. But an instant doubt threatened to choke that excitement. Who would come? What if they just see it as another attempt that will fall through? Rachel took a step closer, grounding Emily's spiraling thoughts. We have to believe in our cause. And remember, you started speaking out for a reason. Your words resonated with them. You've already shown them their SA fire. Let us create a space for it to grow. With a mixture of determination and trepidation, Emily nodded. It was in that moment, looking into Rachel's hopeful eyes, that she recognized the power of collaborative strength. All right, let us do it. We need to plan this meticulously and reach out to everyone. We'll need volunteers, healthcare professionals, and funding, Rachel interrupted. We'll need to write proposals, apply for grants. I know it seems daunting, but we can break it down into manageable tasks. A wave of exhilaration washed over Emily. The whirlwind of tasks ahead felt like an exhilarating challenge rather than an insurmountable obstacle. We'll start with a list of who we know. We can gather support from the clinic, friends, anyone willing to help. As they began sketching out their plan, Emily felt her spirit rise. This was her community, not just a collection of statistics or indifferent faces. It was a living, breathing entity that needed her to engage fully. She could feel the echoes of her speech resonating within her, solidifying her resolve. But just as her mind began to chart the territory ahead, the nagging words of the man from the audience surfaced like a dark cloud. You're just another dreamer. Emily? Rachel's voice broke her focus, and Emily raised her gaze, steeling herself. The past doubt clashed mightily with her budding determination. Ignoring the skepticism from that encounter would be a test of her fortitude. Let us face this, she said, her voice low and purposeful. I want to weave a narrative that they can't ignore. Let's take control and show them what our effort means, one heartbeat at a time. Determined, Emily's insides fluttered with a blend of excitement and fear. She was stepping into uncharted territory, a leader in the making. But the ultimate question loomed over her: could she harness the power of hope in a way that would resonate beyond her small circle, sparking a movement that could change lives? The first domino had fallen, setting a chain reaction into motion, but would she have the strength to ensure it didn't falter? A sudden thought struck her as Rachel scribbled a plan. The weight of that man's disbelief wasn't just a nudge. It was a challenge, pushing her towards a more profound realization of her own potential. A confrontation loomed, not just with the skeptics around her, but with her own fears yet to be faced. As the night wore on, Emily felt a blend of excitement and anxiety surging within her, knowing that the true journey was only beginning. What challenges would arise when the community learned of the fair, igniting skepticism anew? Emily stared at the scattered notes and diagrams that littered her coffee table, the remnants of her and Rachel's ambitious planning session. Each scribbled idea represented a piece of the larger puzzle, a chance to bridge the gap between indifference and advocacy. But as she gazed out the window at the unforgiving night, doubt coiled tightly in her chest. The looming challenge brought forth reluctant memories of past failures, when she applied for promotions and was passed over, when her words had fallen flat in meetings, and the times she faltered during a critical moment on the job. Each instance echoed the man's voice in her mind, taunting her perceived inadequacies. Emily inhaled deeply and clutched her pen like a talisman. She had to confront these shadows. From the depths of her turmoil rose an unexpected surge of resolve. She began drafting a new action plan, each line fueling her desire to forge ahead. They were counting on her to elevate their vision, one calculated action at a time. Okay, Rachel, she said, her voice wavering but becoming steadier with each word. Let us identify potential grant sources first. I'll handle the outreach for testimonials and see if any patients are willing to share their stories. Their voices will be our strongest allies." Rachel smiled, flicking through her own notes, but Emily could see a flicker of concern clouding her features. "You're pushing hard, Em. Just remember to take care of yourself, too." The concern only deepened her resolve. "I can't afford to falter now. This could be our only chance to really make change." But deep down, Emily feared that she might be building a bridge to nowhere. The risk of failure loomed larger than she had allowed herself to admit. As evening morphed into the early hours of dawn, Emily found herself isolated in this whirlwind of thoughts. Alone in this endeavor, pushing forward felt like scaling an insurmountable mountain. She needed more than ideas. She needed the audacity to believe in them despite the ridicule of skeptics. Weeks passed, and progress was slow but steady. Emily spent long days at the clinic, immersing herself in patient interactions that let her connect with the very essence of their mission. Each 50-minute consultation offered a small glimpse of hope and reality, a reminder of the necessity of their work. Slowly, people began to show interest in participating, their stories weaving into a tapestry of shared struggles and triumphs. With every positive interaction, however, deep-seated fears threatened to unravel her progress. The skepticism outside hung like a palpable cloud. She orchestrated meetings with Rachel, crafting proposals, reaching out for donations the entire time wondering if this initiative would amount to anything tangible. Could her efforts stand against the cynicism that brewed in conversations around her? Then came the turning point, a moment that shifted her perspective entirely. At an unexpected community gathering, as she listened to another nurse share a touching patient's story, emotions welled up in Emily, nudging her realization into clarity. The truth became evident. This was not just about saving a program. It was about advocating for lives precious and deserving of attention. That evening, she sat in silence, reflecting on her own evolution. Each challenge had not diminished her, they had fueled her growth in ways she had yet to fully understand. But would the strength she had nurtured be enough to confront the final hurdles ahead? The stakes were climbing, and with it, her desire to prove herself surged relentlessly. As Emily leaned back, crossing the final T in her presentation draft, a sense of weight accompanied her satisfaction. But a nagging thought circled. The skepticism still prowled nearby, threatening to ripple her hard-earned progress into uncertainty. With a final flourish, she closed her laptop, determination licking at the edges of her tired spirit. The nexus between doubt and action had been forged, but would the community she aspired to reach stand by her, or was she merely speaking into the void? That uncertainty sparked within her a deeper question, echoing from her past yet daring to push forward. What lengths would she go to in order to ensure her voice didn't fade into insignificance? The moment of truth was approaching, and Emily would soon have to face not just the noise outside but the silence within. As the last rays of twilight faded, the invisible divide between potential and downfall hung heavily in the air. Would she rise, or would the burden be too great to bear? The morning sun sliced through the curtains, illuminating the barriers Emily had constructed, both in her work and within her mind. She had started to understand that the true transformation she sought needed to take place deep within herself, beyond mere outreach and proposals. In the serenity of morning light, she felt an urgent pull to recalibrate her focus not just on external validation but on self-acceptance, an unyielding belief in her mission. Taking a sip of her now lukewarm coffee, she stared at the plans sprawling across her coffee table. A surge of determination blared through her like an alarm, jolting her from her moment of reflection. She pulled out a new sheet of paper and began writing down the qualities that defined her, a balance between compassion, resilience, and unshakable purpose. This process felt empowering, reshaping her internal narrative from self-doubt to a rallying cry of possibilities. Each trait she penned reminded her of the motivations fueling her actions. She wasn't just looking for external accolades. She wanted to create an impact, a tangible meaning to her professional existence. The realization settled in her heart. Belief in her work must first start with self-belief. Only then could she begin to dismantle the fortress of cynicism that had loomed over her efforts. Her phone buzzed, yanking her back to present realities. It was Rachel, her unwavering partner in this venture. "Hey, I found a local organization willing to partner with us on outreach. They might have resources to amplify our message." The excitement in Rachel's voice was infectious. Latest revelations coiling within, she responded with a newfound eagerness. "That's amazing. Let us brainstorm how to present our vision to them." As the conversation unfolded, Emily grasped the importance of collaboration not as a sign of weakness, but a fundamental aspect of professional growth. Working alongside others not only amplified her message but infused her purpose with vitality. After the call, Emily gathered her thoughts, compelled to put the lessons into action. She reached for her notes, drawing up a list of talking points aimed at potential partners, focusing on the unique strengths she had uncovered. The challenge wasn't solely in managing logistics. It was about fusing their collective experiences into an evocative narrative that spoke to the heart of their mission. However, the creeping apprehension returned whenever she paused to contemplate the looming presentations. What if I stutter? What if my ideas fall flat? What if they don't care? Castles of self-doubt wallowed in the corners of her mind, ready to ambush her at any moment. Determined, she jotted down responses to her inner critic's taunts. Instead of stuttering, I'll speak from my passion. Instead of falling flat, I'll create connections. Before she knew it, it was time to meet Rachel at the clinic, where the future of their joint efforts lay dormant, eager to burst forth. The fear of facing judgment loomed larger than life itself, but she fought to stand firm. Emily stepped into the clinic, where patients engaged in earnest conversations, reminding her why she began this journey. As she prepared for the presentation, she experienced an odd blend of excitement and trepidation, the very discomfort she recognized as growth. In that kinetic energy, she discovered a flicker of resilience. Could it be that in leaning into her anxiety she would find a way to cut through the noise, and articulate their cause with fervor and clarity? With these thoughts echoing in her mind, she walked into the meeting room, bracing herself for confrontation not just with the outside world, but with the vulnerabilities she had sought to overcome. Emily had passed the threshold from mere aspiration to informed action, yet the battle within raged on. Standing before them, a packed room of poised professionals waiting to hear her, she took a deep breath and centered herself. The moment of truth had arrived, not merely for her project but for Emily herself. She sought not just approval but a voice imbued with conviction. Would she rise and speak powerfully or dissolve behind walls of fear? With a firm grip on her notepad, the final echoes of doubt whispered at her heels, leaving the certainty of victory hanging by a precarious thread. Now was not just a test of her capabilities. It was a quest for authenticity. As the first words rolled off her tongue, Emily could feel the weight of her journey gathering momentum. Would she be able to shatter the silence that encapsulated both her and those she sought to inspire? The air in the meeting room felt charged as Emily spoke, the words gaining a life of their own and cascading from her. She began by narrating her vision, how it stemmed from personal experiences, and the deep-seated belief that real change begins with understanding and compassion. With each sentence, the initial tremors of anxiety began to ebb away, replaced by a focused resolve. Her observations about the clinic, about the patients whose stories interwove with her purpose, sparked a tangible connection. Eyes in the room flickered with interest, nodding in empathy. She felt the vulnerabilities she had underestimated transforming into her greatest allies. Fueled by their engagement, she leaned into the narrative of hope and change. She had meticulously crafted a tapestry of their collective mission. Yet, as she progressed, the weight of familiar judgments crept back in. What if I lose their interest? What if my enthusiasm sounds naive? The internal dialogue wrestled for control, but Emily harnessed the energy from the room, redirecting it toward her message. She strutted through the data and examples she had prepared, each statistic acting as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. Her passion transformed the atmosphere. She was no longer merely presenting data, she was sharing a dream. Sharing how collaboration could create ripples that would spread far beyond the confines of the clinic. Suddenly, the room felt alive, igniting a fire within her. She was not alone. This was a partnership waiting to blossom. As she drew towards the conclusion, Emily introduced a thought that had emerged during her preparatory phase. What if we set aside what divides us and focus on what can unify our efforts? By amplifying each other's strengths, we become a force much greater than our individual pursuits. The challenge, she realized, lay not in crafting the perfect pitch, but in being courageous enough to speak the truth of her experience. The response was immediate. Eyes widened, and expressions turned from inquiry into genuine enthusiasm. The room buzzed with possibilities. Rachel's supportive demeanor at the corner reaffirmed her progress. Emily's heart flooded a mixture of vulnerability and exhilaration washed over her. As the final question of the presentation lingered in the air, Emily felt a swell of accomplishment. She had surfed through her anxieties, embracing them rather than surrendering. She had struck a chord not only with her audience but also within herself. In that moment, she recognized a profound lesson. Her voice, unrefined but authentic, had the potential to bridge gaps and foster unity. Leaving the meeting room, exhilarated yet breathless, she was ambushed by a new set of queries. How do I capitalize on this momentum? What is the next step? The answers were unclear, but the doubts were quieter, replaced instead by an invigorating drive. She envisioned meetings filled with brainstorming sessions, ideas flourishing through collaborative efforts. As Rachel approached her with enthusiastic applause, excitement flickered in Emily's chest. You were incredible. They're interested in setting up follow-up meetings. This could really go somewhere. The validation grounded her, yet Emily understood that this was merely the beginning. She had traversed a monumental personal obstacle but now had to navigate the complexities of collaboration. Surrounded by her success, a new horizon instinctively blurred ahead. Her past self would have bathed in this triumph, yet now, she could feel a potent new challenge bubbling just beneath the surface. How could she ensure that the values she had embraced remained untouched by the noise of external influences? The clock was ticking. She had to protect her vision and integrity as she ventured deeper into this professional landscape. The time had come to confront the realities of partnership, how to maintain authentic motivation in a sea of expectations. Would her resolve hold steady as she navigated the labyrinth of collaboration ahead? Uncertain yet emboldened, Emily walked toward her future, ready for the next chapter of her unfolding journey. Emily left the meeting room, the echo of her own words still reverberating in her mind. This momentum felt fragile, like a delicate flame flickering against the gusts of uncertainty swirling around her. The supportive responses from her peers had ignited a spark, but the impending reality of collaboration loomed heavily over her. Would their enthusiasm translate into action, or would it fizzle out in the haze of office politics and clashing agendas? As she navigated the bustling corridors, Emily felt an internal debate brewing. How could she ensure that her vision remained intact while working alongside those who might not share her convictions? Conversations with colleagues flashed through her mind, those moments of agreement and camaraderie overshadowed by the potential for divergence. She could picture their dynamics. Some might see her ideas as aspirational rather than achievable. It was time to leverage this initial validation. She needed a plan, a way to channel this energy into sustained engagement without losing herself. The first step was to establish a framework for collaboration, one anchored in transparent communication and mutual respect. But how could she articulate this framework effectively without alienating others? Seated at her desk, she began to jot down thoughts, grappling with the complexities of partnership dynamics. Trust is a fragile component, she wrote. It requires nurturing but also boundaries. She paused, contemplating what those boundaries would look like. Would she be willing to compromise her core values for the sake of consensus? The thought sent a jolt of anxiety through her, igniting a protective instinct over her vision. Then, a wave of determination surged through her. Emily had fought hard to reclaim her confidence, and now was not the time to retreat into defensiveness. Instead of viewing collaboration as a potential threat, she could embrace it as a learning opportunity. After all, their diverse experiences could serve as windows to enrich her own understanding. Perhaps the real work lay in fostering an environment that encouraged open dialogue, where differences were celebrated and leveraged for richer outcomes. As her ideas spilled across the page, Emily felt a shift in her perspective. Instead of focusing solely on the challenges, she started to sketch how their collective strengths could enhance her vision. What diverse skills can we bring to the table? How can we create accountability structures that honor individual contributions? Each question coaxed forth a deeper sense of possibility. With this newfound clarity, Emily formulated an agenda for their upcoming brainstorming session, one that explicitly invited contributions and offered space for dissent without fear of dismissal. Encouraging a collaborative spirit meant inviting vulnerability not just from her colleagues but from herself as well. In that moment of realization, Emily understood that personal growth was intertwined with professional development. Only by being together in the open, exposing their thoughts, could they redefine the direction ahead. She felt ready to facilitate a conversation that would shape not only her dream but the collective efforts of everyone involved. As the ink dried on her notes, a sudden unfamiliar apprehension clenched at her gut. What if some saw this as an opportunity to dismiss her vision altogether? What if their past experiences colored their perception of her ideas? Questions spiraled, unsettling her confidence. Steeling herself, she reminded herself of the strength emerging from vulnerability. She had already conquered her fears once, she could do it again and come out stronger. But the reality was clear: she would face rejections and pushbacks. It was then, amid the swirling doubts and soaring aspirations, that she finally acknowledged the elephant in the room: her fear of not being taken seriously. Could she find the courage to assert her voice amidst potential opposition? Would she rise to confront challenges head-on, shattering her own ceilings along the way? As Emily locked her notes in her desk drawer that evening, the ambivalence lingered. She was determined yet daunted, infused with the will to step boldly into the unknown. The stage was set for a reckoning of her drive against the realities of collaboration. What awaited her in those upcoming discussions? Would her values withstand the test of negotiation and compromise? Only time would unravel the tangled web of partnerships ahead. Emily arrived early at the conference room, her notes clutched tightly in her hands. The vast table stretched before her, reflecting her nervous energy, as the sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating dusty particles floating in the air. It was a fresh start, yet the weight of expectation settled on her shoulders. Today would either mark the beginning of momentum or the end of her initiative. As her colleagues filtered in, Emily caught snippets of conversations veering toward casual banter. She took a deep breath, trying to harness the energy in the room while focusing inward. The stakes felt higher than ever, and the familiar whirl of self-doubt began to swirl in her mind. Would they share her vision? Would they recognize its potential? The first to arrive, Lisa, a longtime member of the team, offered a bright smile as she settled across from Emily. "You know, I really liked what you proposed in the meeting last week," she said, her sincerity lifting some tension in Emily's chest. "I can see how it connects with the larger goals we've been talking about." "Thanks, Lisa. That means a lot," Emily replied, encouraged by the validation. "I'm hoping we can build on that today." And yet her mind churned. Would this initial positivity hold up when the conversation turned to important decisions? Emily had observed Lisa wrestle with assertive team members in the past. What if today proved no different? The others trickled in, and Emily swiftly introduced the agenda she'd prepared. "I believe collaboration means voicing our ideas without fear of dismissal. Let us explore our different perspectives and see how each of our skills can contribute to this project," she stated, keeping her tone steady to mask the anxiety creeping in. Throughout the discussion, however, the atmosphere shifted. Some members leaned back in their chairs, arms crossed, while others exchanged skeptical glances. Emily fought to keep her focus. The subtle signs of betrayal, resistance, and disagreement coiled around her. She sensed the shift from support to division and felt her pulse quicken. She took a deep breath, asking, "What challenges do you envision with this approach?" This was the moment where she could either lead the discussion downward or pivot into stronger engagement. As they shared their concerns, voices of dissent rose. "Your ideas are solid, Emily, but they may be too ambitious," one colleague commented, punctuating it with a dismissive wave. "The last initiative was ambitious, and it fell apart quickly, remember?" Resentment flickered within her, a challenge to rise and claim ownership of her vision despite the doubts. She reacted, "That past experience taught us valuable lessons on how to iterate. This is a different mountain to climb, and we can evolve together." As the words left her mouth, a surprising surge of conviction dawned on her. She wasn't just defending her vision, she was asserting her right to lead, yet beneath her courage lay a tangle of insecurity. What if her insistence overshadowed their valuable contributions? Would her determination alienate her colleagues instead of galvanizing their spirit? Thinking on her feet, Emily suggested an open session for feedback, allowing each member to express their reservations and ideas freely. This approach reframed vulnerability as a strength, and as discussions flowed, it unveiled deeper insights about each colleague's motivations. The dynamic began to shift. Some apprehensions turned into productive discourse. Ideas emerged, not just hers, but from voices that had previously been silent. As they delved into constructive dialogue, Emily's fear of rejection morphed into a catalyst for building resilience. If she could persist through discomfort, she could cultivate unity. By the meeting's end, a tentative consensus emerged. Emily felt lighter, having laid bare her vision while inviting collaboration. Yet, amidst the excitement, she couldn't ignore the lingering unease. Would they truly align, or was this merely a momentary truce? With a mix of hope and apprehension, she realized she'd taken a vital step on her journey, a journey that was just beginning, one that would undoubtedly require more from her. How could she best prepare for future resistance while still advocating for her vision? As she left the conference room, her heart raced with the possibility of success and the fear of what challenges lay ahead. Tomorrow's challenges beckoned her. Would she navigate the thin line between vulnerability and assertiveness, or would the collaboration expose cracks she hadn't yet seen? The days ahead were filled with uncertainty, and the resolve to face them was beginning to crystallize. Emily sat at her desk, staring blankly at the computer screen. The echoes of the meeting replayed in her mind, fragments of dialogue swirling and colliding. Though she had navigated the storm successfully, doubt brewed just beneath the surface. The feeling of victory felt precariously balanced against a backdrop of unresolved tension among her colleagues. Her instincts urged her to take immediate action to strengthen the collaborative bonds formed during the meeting, but the fear of missteps held her back. Would pursuing clarity alienate those who had just shown signs of openness? Each decision felt monumental now, the stakes higher than she had ever anticipated. In an effort to channel her bubbling anxiety, Emily set about drafting a follow-up email to her team. She felt compelled to express gratitude for their contributions, emphasizing their ideas as crucial to the project's success. Words flowed with renewed purpose as she reminded herself that a leader fosters growth through connection, but the moment she pressed send, waves of second-guessing swept over her. Had she struck the right tone? What if someone felt patronized or undervalued? The flood of possibilities was dizzying. She wrapped her fingers around her pen and began to write in her journal, a habit she'd cultivated to ground her thoughts. The familiar scratch of the ink soothed her nerves as she reflected on the day. Her writing turned to contemplation. What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? She penned, a question she had often read in self-help books but never fully embraced. The words ignited something within her, a flicker of determination that felt achingly familiar yet distant. Each letter transformed her conviction, inching closer to an answer. With each page filled, a hidden reservoir of resilience began to bubble to the surface. Emily recognized her evolving perspective. She was no longer just a participant in her own plans. She was an architect of change. The next morning, a heavy fog rolled over the city, mirroring the uncertainty that enveloped her thoughts. During her commute, Emily contemplated the meeting ahead, an informal catch-up session designed to gauge her colleagues' thoughts now that they had a chance to digest her ideas. For once, she made a conscious decision: vulnerability would be her ally. Arriving early at the cafe where they would meet, she claimed a corner table and ordered coffee, hoping the caffeine would stoke her courage. As she waited, she surveyed the scene. The bustling cafe teeming with life seemed a metaphor for the energy she wished to nurture within her team. She envisioned the members seated around her, ready to engage, to inspire, and to challenge one another. When her colleagues trickled in, Emily greeted them animatedly, shaking off remnants of insecurity. As the conversation shifted toward the project, she encouraged each person to share openly. The dialogue flowed effortlessly, revealing not only enthusiasm for the initiative but vulnerabilities too. David, a typically reticent member of the team, surprised everyone by sharing a personal story of a previous project failure that paralleled their current endeavor. Emily noticed a shift. The atmosphere transformed from formal to familial, almost electric. Stories ignited the room, revealing shared challenges that bonded them together. With her heart pounding in exhilaration, Emily realized that this was the moment she had longed for, a sense of solidarity palpably replacing isolation. It was not just her vision anymore, it had become their vision, a collective tapestry woven from diverse threads. Yet, lurking beneath the euphoria was a sobering awareness. This unity was fragile, and maintaining it would require constant nurturing and effort. Would the willingness to share lead them back to the safe haven of the past, or propel them toward a fruitful collaboration? As conversations waned and laughter filled the room, Emily felt a newfound sense of responsibility enveloping her, a reminder that true leadership demanded continuous investment in her team's growth. She would need to face conflicts head-on as they arose, challenging them to transform into opportunities for deeper connection. With each step forward, Emily understood her growth would hinge on mastering the balance between leadership and listening. The day ahead held promise, but shadows of doubt hovered. Would she be ready to navigate the complexities now surfacing, or would past failures seep into the cracks of their current endeavor? As she packed her notebook, the question resonated within her. How would she stay true to her vision, while encouraging others to claim ownership of it as well? The path ahead twisted with uncertainty, illuminating her ultimate challenge, to not just lead, but to lead effectively amidst tumultuous tides of collaboration. Emily stood in front of the Community Health Fair booth, a tangible emblem of her evolution from a solitary caregiver to a vibrant leader of change. The once overwhelming feelings of doubt and inadequacy had transformed into a confident clarity that radiated from her. With every interaction, she witnessed the power of collective stories, each person that approached her reaffirming the importance of their shared mission. The air buzzed with connection. There was laughter, discussion, and an unmistakable spark of hope, a far cry from the darkness that had once enveloped her. Weeks of preparation and vulnerability had led to this moment. The fair was not just a local event. It was a demonstration of resilience, showcasing a community willingly stepping into the light. Emily surveyed the bustling crowd, patients mingling with healthcare providers, conversations blooming between skeptics and believers alike. She felt a profound sense of achievement surge within her. For the first time, she wasn't just advocating for others, she was an architect of change, steady in her conviction and purpose. Standing next to Rachel, who flashed an encouraging smile, Emily reflected on the journey that had reshaped her perspective. The vulnerability of sharing her vision in meetings had attracted allies, those who resonated with her message and stories. Together, they faced resistance head-on, redirecting criticism into actionable insights. Emily had come to recognize that partnership didn't undermine her vision, it strengthened it. She now saw her colleagues not as potential rivals, but as collaborators, each contributing unique strengths toward a shared goal. As the fair unfolded, momentum built. Emily's heart raced when she noticed the town's mayor, a pivotal figure whose support could solidify their initiative. Mustering her courage, she approached him with confidence. "Thank you for being here. I'd love to share how our community health initiative can transform lives," she said, her voice steady. The mayor listened intently as she articulated their vision, clearly conveying the tangible human impact visible that day. To her surprise, he appeared impressed and engaged. His commitment to their cause palpable, he offered to provide funding for future endeavors. In that pivotal exchange, Emily recognized her transformative growth. She was no longer speaking into the void. Her words carried weight and influence. Returning to the booth, she felt the reassuring presence of Rachel by her side. "You have truly become a catalyst for change," Rachel said, her voice brimming with pride. Striking a balance between the emotional highs and the unfolding challenges ahead, Emily nodded thoughtfully, feeling a swell of gratitude. She had become the voice for those who had felt unheard, It was not just her mission, but a tapestry of hope woven with the stories of many. As the fair concluded, Emily stood at the center overwhelmed with gratitude. Colleagues she had once feared would resist now embraced her leadership. She had long since shattered the suffocating belief that her aspirations were naive dreams. Not only had she conquered her fears, but Emily had also built a framework of support, inviting collaboration into her vision while remaining anchored in her values. Finally recognizing her worth, Emily became aware that true leadership requires nurturing self-belief. Without this foundation, even the most well-structured plans could crumble. She had proven that change could emerge from personal struggle, transformed through faith into impactful action. With a buoyant heart, she embraced her next steps with clarity and focus. This fair was just the beginning. She envisioned follow-up meetings, outreach programs, and an engaged network that would reach beyond the town's borders. Emily understood that change was not an isolated event, it was an ongoing journey fueled by commitment and connection. As she packed up the booth for the day, she caught a glimpse of Lucas, joyous and carefree, surrounded by laughter from new friends he had made during the fair. In that moment, Emily felt an immense pride and fulfillment. She had fought through adversity, and had achieved not just personal transformation, but a renewed sense of purpose that extended to her family and community. Emily smiled knowingly. She was no longer just a nurse, a caregiver overwhelmed by her circumstances. She had established herself as a leader, equipped with the confidence to prove that impossible dreams could indeed become realities. The journey was far from over, but with every challenge that lay ahead, she would meet it fearlessly, knowing she had already changed the narrative for her community. Now was the moment for all viewers to step forward. If you were inspired by Emily's journey, you need to subscribe now and join this transformative community. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this incredible story with at least 5 friends who need to believe in overcoming obstacles. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. And dare to comment your reactions and theories about what comes next. Your engagement fuels the inspiration. Let us rise together.